Welcome to Embedded. I am Alicia White alongside Christopher White. I'm happy to say that Chris Svec has returned to talk with us about training up new engineering hires. And if you think we're going to stay on that topic, welcome newcomer. You've clearly never listened to the show.
I thought we were going to talk about another movie. I guess not. Hello.
We can talk about Wimbledon. We can talk about World Cup. Actually, I haven't been watching as much World Cup as Wimbledon, but any of these topics.
All right, you have joined us. Welcome back.
Welcome. Good to talk to you both again.
We know you because we've actually met you in person.
Amazing.
Could you tell us about yourself as if we had never met you and we were just meeting you, I don't know, on the train to Palo Alto?
Why would I be going there?
He would.
Okay.
At first, I'd probably say, "Can I have my wallet back, please?" But then I would say,
"You said I could inspect it."
I'm Chris Svec, Director of Embedded Software Engineering at Insulet. We make a tubeless insulin pump for people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes to help people who have diabetes to live better and to simplify their lives. I've spent somehow 25 years now in hardware and software, and I basically love all things embedded systems. You know, I've been friends with you two for forever, and over the last 10 years, I've really focused more on how to build and grow embedded systems teams. Kind of more about the psychology and the sociology about how we work together, and a little less on the technology. But yeah, that's my elevator pitch for the subway, not subway. I've actually never ridden the transport
Caltrain.
in the Caltrain.
Train.
It's a train. It's an actual train. That one's a train.
Choo-choo.
There's BART, which is the metro kind of thing, and then there's Caltrain, which is a train.
Weirdly, we're off topic already.
Very on brand and off topic.
It's a holiday.
And you used to work for iRobot.
I did. I spent 11 long and good years at iRobot, and then I've done chip design before. I've done various embedded systems at within chip companies, and then outside of chip companies. I've done more embedded systems lately, and I spent the last couple of years at a medical device company. I've never done med device, so I've spent the last couple of years learning how to spell FDA and what that brings with it, the responsibility and the process and everything with it as well.
And I don't think we really need to do this, but just for crossing T's and dotting I's, you're not talking for Insulet as part of this podcast. This is all just you.
That is a great reminder. Yep, I'm not speaking for anyone other than myself, just my personal self. I don't speak for any company, past, present, or future. Thank you for that legal reminder.
Well, all right. That forecloses a lot there.
Okay, so let's get to lightning round.
All right, and I'm going to flip this. I've got some lightning round questions for you, and this is the relationship test edition of lightning round. So I'm going to ask you questions for each other. So Alicia, you have to tell me, what do you think Chris would answer, and vice versa. So Alicia, you're going first.
You should keep in mind I edit this podcast.
That's true. I look forward to hearing how this ends up. So Alicia, if Chris had to play a rock gig with one piece of drum equipment, what one piece of drum equipment? It's like he gets a one bass drum, he gets a snare drum, he gets a hi-hat, one cymbal. He only gets one. What would he play with?
A snare.
All right. And if he gets two, what would he play with? Two pieces. What would his second piece be?
A snare and a drumstick.
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 I think a drumstick was included.
No, I like it. I like where she's going with that. Bonus points. Bonus points for that one. Chris, if you could insert like a lightning sound here to show that she gets the bonus points, that would be great. All right, Chris, you have to answer for Alicia. Mountain or valley fold?
I mean, they're equivalent if you turn the paper upside. Mountain fold.
All right.
Obviously.
Obviously. Alicia, for Chris, AI via the terminal or via a web interface?
No AI.
No AI. All right, Chris, for Alicia, PID or common filter?
PID.
Chris is really getting into this, I can tell. Alicia, for Chris, Geddy Lee or Neil Peart?
Neil Peart.
Neil Peart, okay.
Peart.
Okay. Peart. Chris, what is the right pronunciation of his last name?
Peart.
Peart, okay.
Yes.
Peart. Peart. Chris, what is Alicia's favorite sea creature?
Octopus.
Octopus. All right. And this is
probably a whale. Well, it changes depending on what she's read about recently.
Could be a nudibranch, could be a narwhal.
Could be a narwhal, could be...
Gosh, there's so many options.
I saw some friend got a new passport recently and there was a narwhal on it. I think it might have been Canada's passport, Canadian passport.
How do we get Canadian citizenship?
I just want the passport. Just the narwhal looked amazing. All right. Last question for each of you. Alicia, if Chris had to use only Rust or only code with AI for a year, which would he choose?
Oh, it doesn't matter. If those were his only two options, he would just go into the forest and not use any code.
Okay. Easy enough. Chris, if Alicia had to have an LED blinking in her office for a year, but she'd be paid, let's say, $10 million at the end of it, would she do it? No, absolutely not. All right. That thus concludes lightning round. Thank you for playing.
Those were very good.
Okay. I have called you here together to talk about new college grads. And to some extent, this show is ideally going to help some new college grads as they acclimate to industry from school. But I want to take it from the other side. Is you're a manager. I've been managing folks. What is your strategy when you hire a new college grad? They get there. There's the first 2 weeks, which is special. They get their computer. They learn about 401ks. They get the fire hose of information that's culture and the tasks they're supposed to work on. And there's just this incredible period of learning. I don't care about that so much because that's just, you have to do all that. It's the how do you develop someone from being a new college grad, bright potential, smart person, lots of knowledge, into being an engineer who can work on their own?
Great question. The default question I've started asking myself and asking my team and having people ask, regardless of what we're doing at work lately, is what problem are we trying to solve? Because engineers, we love coming up with solutions without understanding the problem first. I mean, humans do this all the time, but I think engineers are really good at saying, oh, look, I made something, and now where can I find somewhere to use it? Instead of stepping back and saying, what problem are we trying to solve? And so I would say the problem here is, you're saying, hey, we got a new hire, new college grad, a relatively, junior person. Maybe they've interned, maybe not. And that's the situation we find ourselves in. The way I'd ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve? You've answered some of it. You said, we ignoring the first 2 weeks, but how do we get them to be able to be understanding enough to do pull requests and so on? I would go one step further and say, do we have a goal of saying in 6 months, we want them to be able to be, on the team, on a Scrum team or on a project team and reasonably independent? Or is it in 3 months we want them to do that? Or in 6 months we want them to have researched this new area for our project we're giving them? And so I would say, step back and say, for this particular human in, this new hire, what do we want them to be able to do in 6 months? And, we don't have to answer that here because obviously that's specific to whoever you're onboarding. But that, I think you need to keep that in your mind as the hiring manager and as the team absorbing this new person so that you make sure that they're heading in the specific direction you want them to have, as opposed to, well, just throw them at the code base and let's see what comes out the other end. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it wasn't what I was going for at all.
All right.
Yes, we definitely need that. What does this person need to do in 6 months? But I wanted to talk more about the teaching them to be a senior engineer, to not have to be told what they're going to work on next, but to be able to see the system as a system and say, oh, that's what the next important thing is. And I don't think it's a 6-month journey. At least a year, probably 5. And I don't know how, I don't want it to be particularly company related. I'm going back to when I started, of course. And I went to HP long before HP and Compaq did their thing. HP Way had just come out. It was the old HP. I joined as a cohort. Like, they hired hundreds of new grads, and in my building, there were like 40 of us. Chris, you were kind of part of a cohort as well. No?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. Cisco wasn't that big at that time. I don't remember too many other. There were a couple, but it wasn't like HP where they've got. You probably had meetings with all the new people, right, or something like. They didn't do that.
Only once or twice.
Yeah, no, I was just a new person on a team.
But I did feel like HP had this idea that you should help the new college grads, the new people to the team to become senior engineers, to not just have that be a side effect of seeing too many problems and developing cynicism.
Got it. So so then the problem you're trying to solve, I'll bring it back to me here, bring it back to my question. The problem you're trying to solve here is not the specifics of, what this person is going to do, even in the 1-2 year time frame, but instead, how do I start with a, new hire, fresh out of college person, and in 5 years, how do I have somebody who is senior, who can go on independently and figure out what problems to solve, who can sort of make schedules and figure out what are the risky elements, what should we do first, kind of learn the judgment and taste that goes along with the senior engineer. Is that a little what you're thinking?
Yes. And if I can do that for 3 people, then I can promote the person who's currently in the senior position, and they can do my job, and I can retire to an island.
Fantastic. Yeah. Putting yourself out of work is always a good goal. I love that. So I have a few general thoughts. I know that, we talked about this a little bit before the show, but, I'll just launch into them and, obviously interrupt, or we can dissect them as we go here. But there's a couple things that I think you need to do to like really get a new hire sort of, I'm going to use the word empowered, and I kind of don't like that word, but the default for a new hire is to come into your company scared and quiet and with imposter syndrome. And there's a phrase, going dark. And when a new hire comes in, and if they're too scared to ask questions, if they are too scared to appear ignorant, and if they don't feel like they can ask what they perceive as dumb questions, or be perceived as someone who doesn't know something they should know, you're going to shut them down, and you're setting that up for failure at that way. So the single best skill and behavior I think to have as a new hire, or anyone who's new into a team, is the willingness to ask questions, is to admit ignorance. I actually think it's a superpower to be able to admit ignorance publicly. And so as you onboard a new hire, I am explicit with people who I hire and who I work with who are junior, and say, hey, you are not going to know a lot of stuff here. You are going to be confused. You're going to be frustrated because it seems like, why is this so hard to learn? The working world is not designed like a class with a well-worn syllabus that, okay, we teach you thing A, we teach you thing B, and that leads to thing C. Like, the working world is just not like that. Now, as a hiring manager, it would be great to set up the scaffolding for the new hire. And I think, Alicia, that's kind of what you're trying to do here. But it's hard, it's tough, it's not going to be linear, it's going to be a very non-linear journey, and setting up the expectation for the new hire that, hey, you're going to be confused. That's fine. Please ask questions. Like, the biggest danger for a new hire is if they go dark for a week or 2 or 3. You don't hear from them, they don't hear from you, and they're just toiling away in confusion and sadness, and they don't get anything done, and everyone loses. So I'll stop there. Any comments on that? Am I going on the right track for what you're thinking here, Alicia?
I mean, I really want it to be from the tech leader or new manager perspective, which is, to flip around what you said, you really need to praise new hires for asking questions, even though it may be interrupting what you're doing, even though it may be irritating because why didn't they just read it? I spent so long writing a wiki that now is 1,000 pages. Asking questions is good, especially in the beginning.
Yes.
if they lose that, they're going to end up dark.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
And yeah, actually, what you said is right. What I would like is a year-long course on moving from being a junior engineer to being solid in your engineering practice. And maybe it's an hour meeting and 2 hours a week of homework. I don't, and it would of course have to be per company, per project, but there is a lot of commonality in embedded on what you should expect. And asking questions, praising people for asking questions is definitely one of the things that we need to do and we need to model. I really try to do that where I'm like, yeah, okay, there's this part of this project I'm working on that I don't understand well. And so I'm totally willing to ask completely stupid questions because I find it is probably a good thing for people to realize that I don't know everything and that I am happy asking questions. And I am also happy not knowing everything.
Yes, and you're happy doing it publicly so that everyone around you can see that, hey, Alicia doesn't know everything, even though she's she's a guru, she's got a podcast, she's got a successful company, and she's written the book on embedded systems. If someone like you can say, hey, how does that work? I don't get it. Can you explain that again? That is huge. That is such a great example. So again, totally agree with that.
So in the list of things managers should think about is model the behavior. I mean, that should always be what you do, but modeling the questioning behavior is a really good one.
Yes, and not just for the manager themselves, but the cranky old timer on the team who is it might be predisposed to saying RTFM kid, I wrote it there for you. Maybe have a talk with the whole team and say, hey, look, this person hasn't worked for 20 years. This person hasn't been in our code base for 5 years or even 5 minutes. And they're going to be confused because, code is not self-documenting as much as we'd like it to be. And so have patience, try to remember what it was like when you were, 22 and new to everything. And so that everyone can model that. And then publicly praise people on your team, or public or private, it's up to you, especially the senior people. Say, hey, I'm really, thank you for asking that question in that public forum. Again, admitting ignorance publicly is superpower.
I've saved up like a bunch of questions. Do you want me to derail?
Yeah.
Derail this and go. Do you have a direction after this? I'm sure you do, but I don't want to screw it all up.
It's all good.
I want to go back to a fundamental question, which you all have not answered. Why hire new grads? If this takes all this extra work, and there's people out there who are seasoned, and I'm being devil's advocate, people out there who already know how to do all this stuff, why not just find somebody who's 5 years out of college or 10 years out of college and hire them? Why hire a new grad, which takes extra work, and they're just going to leave after 3 years to go to a new startup?
Because they're cheap.
Are they?
Sometimes. I mean, does the amount of effort to train them cost money?
I'm not saying
yes.
you shouldn't. I just want to know from a company's perspective, what is the benefit of hiring a new grad?
Cost is one thing. A 0 years experience costs less than 5 years experience, costs less than 10 years experience, and so on. That's not always true, depending on how quickly salaries are changing in a market, but that's generally true. Additionally, especially...
But are you getting what you pay for? Because the productivity might be a third of a 5 year.
But you're training them the way you want them to be trained.
That's fine. Okay. Yeah.
So, yes.
They may not bring in bad habits that have been learned elsewhere. Newer people to the industry also bring in newer skills and newer ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And some new ideas that they learned in college or from their friends or whatever, because they're not set in their ways after doing something for 25 years. They have never heard of IAR or Kyle. And when they see IAR or Kyle, they say, hey, have you heard of this thing called GCC or VS Code or Cursor?
Or literally anything.
Try that. Literally anything. So that's a very real.
Have you heard of this thing called VI?
VI? Vim? Have you heard of Vim?
Have you heard of Edline?
I love it.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no, there's more on that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's definitely more.
They're not cynical. And they don't.
Wait a minute.
They don't.
You went to school with me.
I went to school with you, yes. You've always been cynical. They don't bring in the no is always the first answer. They often bring in an excitement and a joy that if we can nurture that, the whole industry becomes more fun.
There's a couple good company side answers too, especially for a larger company. Something that a global HR team will look for, or an HR kind of the organizational structure side of things, is you want a team that is built up of people of a variety of everything. So diversity is good just in general. Diversity of background, diversity of gender, diversity of all the things is good because you get different inputs, different experiences, different eyes on things. And one of those is skill level. The inexperienced person is going to have very different observations on something than the person who's been doing this for 30 years. There's more of a beginner's mind. And so there's some of that. In addition, some HR departments will simply say, you've got to have like a bell curve of kind of staffing levels. If you have 20 people on your team and they're all senior, then that is not super healthy. You need some really senior people, and you need some junior people, and you need some people in the middle. And so some companies will actually say, when you hire, you have to keep in mind what your kind of seniority distribution looks like. And again, they do that for a variety of reasons, but some of the good part of that is just getting the diversity of thought and experience. Another thing is, and this it's a little bit even tricky to talk about, but someone who is junior, someone who is learning, is going to be able to do some of the work that's maybe, I'm going to call it grunt work. I'm not meaning to demean the work, assuming that you are only making sort of real work that actually is useful work that needs to be done. Then, you know what? There's some work that needs to be done for every project that hasn't been automated yet. Having someone who's new, who hasn't done it before, is a better use of the company's money than having someone whose time and energy and budget should be focused on higher leverage, higher value things. And so having someone who's junior to do, I'll say, some of the grunt work is maybe better than more valuable to the company than someone who's been doing this for 30 years.
Going back to the diversity, I think you can find more diversity in college students than you can in engineering. And if you have a good plan for helping them grow, maybe we can add diversity to the whole industry.
That is fantastic too. Like if you look around, anyone who's had, the average 20-year experience embedded systems person looks a lot like me, right? It's a middle-aged white dude who grew up in tech. And if you just want to have that for your company, then I guess that's what you can do. But yeah, if you want to get more diverse anything, you got to look outside of that.
Do you train everyone on dealing with new grads? You talk about these things like talking to the senior people who might be a little disgruntled or not wanting to deal with newbies. And is that kind of an individual thing where you pull Gary from QA aside and say, look, you gotta talk to Sarah and be nice to her. She's a new grad, and stop acting like your normal self, or what? Or is there like a plan? Okay, here's the team that sets the team down. We have new grads. Here's how we want to bring them up. It's all formal.
I mean, I think you do it with the whole team. I think this, if you're buying into anything that we're saying here, and if you think that, okay, yeah, let's encourage the new hire to ask these questions, and let's reward curiosity instead of punishing it, then I think, honestly, even if you didn't have a new hire, you should do this with your team, because I guarantee you there's people on your team who are scared to ask questions because they don't want to look dumb, even if you never hire anybody again. And so I think there's value to sort of saying, hey, everybody, let's put our ego aside a little bit, and let's all be a little quicker to admit our ignorance internally. Oh, and by the way, we've got a new hire coming who is going to have imposter syndrome out the wazoo and really needs us to encourage curiosity.
I could see having a new hire be an excuse for having that meeting and talking about it. But in general, no. A new hire does not mean that I would have a meeting that says, be nice to the new hire. I would go to Gary, grumpy old Gary, and say, would you like to mentor so-and-so? And when they say, no, I am much too grumpy, I am a curmudgeon, then you say, well, could you at least be nice to her? you know.
That sounded like Eeyore. I'd just like to point out.
Yeah, well, there's only so many voices.
No, it was a good voice. Like it took me right to the right personality. I've got a very good visual picture of that, or mental picture of that.
One of the things when I was new was nobody sat me down and said, "Hey, it's okay to make mistakes. That's what code review is for. That's what the source control system's for. Don't hover over the enter key on your PR for an hour, sweating before pushing the button just because you're so nervous about merging something." Nobody told me that. So I spent a lot of time in that mode, like, oh boy. And my code was god awful in my first 2 years.
I thought you were going to say your code was perfect as a result.
No. It was orthogonal to the issue of me being nervous to commit it. It was still bad, but I didn't. And I think that was good because Cisco gave me permission to put bad code in, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, do you sit down and say to the new grad, look, you're going to have imposter syndrome. This is a new experience. It's okay to make mistakes. Everyone here has made mistakes. Everyone here makes mistakes on a monthly, weekly basis. You will make mistakes, and nobody's going to yell at you unless you push to production on a Friday night.
And even then, we should have systems that keep us from doing that instead of allowing it to be that. Yes, yes. So, getting into kind of more tactical stuff, I think we've been sort of like bigger picture. So what I like to do is to assign a buddy to every new hire. And that buddy is somebody who cannot be the manager, should not be like in the line of reporting. Ideally, it's like 1 or 2 or 3 levels kind of above the new hire, seniority wise. And that buddy should be there. The manager should also say this, but the buddy should then say, hey, look, you're gonna make mistakes. Here's 2 bugs that I pushed to production in the last 6 months. Like, here's how we found them. Here's how we fixed them. And like, no one's getting fired over it. No one's getting yelled at. We might do a retro. How can we avoid that kind of bug in the future? But not a big deal. If you're a general principle that I think I try to do, and actually I need to follow up with somebody at work, I just remembered about this, is that do like companies do lunch and learns for, hey, I learned this new topic. Here's how a PID works. Here's how Claude does this neat thing. Here's this new embedded systems chip that I found that has a cool peripheral, blah, blah, blah. But something else you should do lunch and learns about is bugs. Hey, here's this bug. We found it, only in the wild, in the world. And here is how we tracked it down. Here's the debugging techniques we used. Here's how we fixed it. And here's some ways we'll try to make it never happen again, so that people can see that the person who wrote the bug, and then hopefully they're also the person who found the bug, can, they have lived to code another day. They're not punished. There's the joke is, right? There's 2 phases to programming, right? There's debugging and there's bugging. And those are the only 2 phases. And so, if you're not debugging, then you're bugging. And it's kind of a joke. It's very tongue in cheek, but setting that expectation is good. The other thing about having a buddy there is I would have the buddy sit with the new hire, and the buddy's working on a task of their own. And so the buddy should be thinking out loud as they're working through the task, and then saying, okay, I have a new task. This Jira ticket is to go and implement some new little feature. Here's how I think of it. Here's how the system works. Do you have any questions? As they're going back and having a conversation with the new hire, showing them how they're actively thinking through the feature or the bug or whatever it is they're working on. And then have the new hire sit there, and maybe they code together. Maybe they do a little bit of pair programming. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And then actually show them as they put the PR up. And then, their PR won't be perfect. So hopefully other people on the team then do pull request comments, and then show the new hire that, oh, look, Gary over there, he actually found this giant hole in what I implemented. Good for Gary. Glad he caught that. And then let's fix it together, so that the new hire can see an example of someone getting, active comments on their PR, and see, okay, it's okay. It's okay to not be perfect. That's part of what the PR is for. Pull requests are for catching errors, and they're also for having everyone learn about the system. Does that answer some of what you were talking about there?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a question of formality. Like, how much is there this is our company process for the new grad on the new grad side, and on the team side. And it sounds like it's a mix of things, which is appropriate and probably depends on the company and the size of your company. If your team is 3 people, no, you probably don't need a new grad hiring process that everyone follows. If you're HP with a cohort, then I suspect HP had a binder with 8,000 pages and contingency plans for every sort of failure. Yeah, okay. Well, I have one more thing, but I think I will hold it for later because it's a kind of a shift. So,
so thinking about this, I am thinking we had some new people added to my team, and they're pretty junior, and I'm having a good time trying to make sure that they understand that what they're going through is totally normal. That ignorance is not their fault. It's just their turn. And we all go through this, and we all start to understand more. And what I really haven't been able to articulate to them is that there is often a loneliness in this. And Svec just said pair programming. We can't do that right now. We actually need them to be working on their own things. And so the more senior engineers are trying to mentor them through PRs, and we're all kind of frantically doing things for a little while, and it will get better. But the idea that we need to tell them it's okay to make mistakes is so important. And I don't think I've done that enough. I have tried to say, you did a good job on this, but I don't think I have let them know that. A few times I've said, it's okay if it goes wrong. Just let me know and we'll untangle it together. But I definitely am trying to let them make their mistakes and not stress about it, just to show them that, yeah, it's fine. We can figure it out. Go ahead, do the merge. If it goes bad, let me know right away and I'll come clean it up.
Nice. I mean, that's a great attitude about that. Yeah. So your position is like, look, we're going 1,000,000 miles an hour. We've got an investor demo. We have something, and so we can't quite do a full pair programming or have them sit down. So what I like to do there, and honestly, 8 hours a day of pair programming is not typical, and that's not even what I was saying. But if you really don't have that much bandwidth to do, then at a bare minimum, what I say is that, all right, you have a clear thing. Here is a ticket for you, new hire. Work on this thing. And then what you do is you say, I will meet with you every day for an hour. And, 9 a.m. or whatever, have a regular time. And after 10 a.m., so 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., you're working on your own. Here is the Slack channel to ask any questions. Yeah. Here are the 3 people who you can bug about it. Here is, the weekly team meeting about it. Come to the stand-ups, invite them to all of that stuff so they're part of the team. Here's the people to bug about it. But they have a time-limited window. You have 7 hours to work. Write down every question that you have, and then that you don't get answered for some reason. And then we'll talk about it during tomorrow morning's 1 hour one-on-one. And I expect you to have questions. I expect some of these things to be confusing. I expect you to write bugs. And this is the way we learn. What did you say a minute ago, Alicia? You said ignorance is not their fault. It's their turn. I actually wrote that down because I love that. It's their turn to go through this process. This is the natural process. I love that.
Hey, and all of us go through it every time we switch projects. Turns out, you may have more experience, but every time you're faced with if you come into a company or a project that's been going for a while, there's a lot of code. There's a lot of thought that's been put into it, design. And every time it's like, wow, I don't understand this. I don't understand these choices. None of this makes sense. And after 6 months of working on it, you're like, oh, this is how this works. And this is why this was, I think that's experience that we have over and over and over in our career. And it's good to kind of not only say it's your turn, but it's going to be your turn throughout your career.
over and over again. Just get used to it.
Actually, so yeah, I love that, Chris. That didn't even occur to me, but I'm going to +1 that and then say that the act of walking into something, being ignorant, being a beginner, and figuring things out, that is a skill. That is a muscle. That is not an inborn trait. None of us are good at being beginners, out of the box, right? And so, especially in the software engineering context, learning how to learn, learning how to onboard yourself, learning how to ask questions. That is a skill that, like you said, Chris, you're going to do that until you retire, and hopefully after you retire too, because hopefully you stay active learning new things as well. And so I love that. That's an extra motivation for both your current team, like, hey, everybody, we can all remember that we have to learn how to learn. And so the new hire knows that, oh yeah, this frustration that I'm feeling, that I will feel, this ignorance, this kind of being lost feeling, that is expected. And then pushing through that literally develops the mental muscle of a skill that will serve you for the rest of your career. Literally building mental muscle is not a grammatically accurate phrase, I don't think, but I'm going to go with it.
I'm reminded of a blog post I wrote that I am still very proud of. That's called "Resilience is a Skill," and I don't know if you remember it, Svec, but
I the title rings a bell. But yeah, I can imagine what it's about. But please go. What is it?
We had a listener write in about how they really were hating some of their non-technical classes, and we're thinking about just I don't remember entirely, but we're thinking about dropping them and getting rid of school because why did you have to take writing or business or whatever, accounting? And my response was, yeah, you have to practice sitting there. You have to practice being resilient to the things you don't want to do, to failing. And this is an example of where one of those times where you can thoughtfully consider, how do I make this palatable? How do I make this okay? I have to do it. Do you make the effort to figure out how you would teach this better? Do you make the effort to just get through it, power through it, be done? How do you build the skill of going through instead of constantly trying to go around whatever the problem is? Sometimes you just have to go through, and whatever you use to push through is a muscle. It's a skill that you build. It isn't a one and done. It's like ignorance and learning. This is something you're going to have to continue to do. If you can make it easier for yourself, do so. If you don't make it easier for yourself, at some point you will find an obstacle and there won't be a way around and you'll be stuck. And that's no good. So start taking on those obstacles as though they are learning experiences.
I love that. Yeah, that definitely rings a bell now. I remember reading that. But yeah, that is fantastic.
Before we move on, as a corollary to the ignorance thing and feeling lost and maybe having the feeling like this is overwhelming, there is an instinct, and I have it sometimes, and I think a lot of new people who come out of school and feel very smart, maybe they succeeded in school, they're in a company, they mistake that feeling of being lost or not understanding things for this hasn't been done right.
Yes, the story of the new college grad who suggested that maybe if the company made more revenue, it would be more successful.
Well, I mean, that's what?
I don't know if it's apocryphal. It was a tweet, but yes, there was the story of the new college grad who was just like, well, why don't we just make more money? And then we will be more successful. And everybody's looking at him like,
yes, I mean, that's an extreme example, but I was thinking more of like, this code is crap, I can't understand it.
Right.
Or mistaking a large project complexity for spaghetti code. Or, I mean, sometimes you're right. Sometimes after 3 years, the code isn't great, but that's what happens after 3 years of, I'm going to use my favorite word, accreting things and bug fixes and demands from management and changes and things. Code gets worse the longer it's, been worked on. Just
entropy is real.
Entropy is real, but that's a fact of development, and we all have to fight against that. But that doesn't mean you get to come in and mistake your, wow, this is hard to understand, I'm lost, for we should just start over, or you did a terrible job, you guys. I'm the new smart kid. That is one way to make the senior people not help as much,
Well, and that's not just for junior people.
Of
that's
course,
for any new hire onto a team. Like, the first thing, let's rewrite it in Rust, right? This is garbage. If only we would have done it the smart way. You people are dumb. And so hopefully as people get longer in their careers, maybe you can't even learn this until you spent 5 years in a code base that you have helped to accrete, to contribute to the accretion. I'm not sure what the grammar is here, but until you've been part of that and you look back and you're like, I'm not a dumb person, but we're here because we're here, and rewriting the system isn't something we can tackle today. So how do I make progress? Maybe the progress is to rewrite part of it, or to add modularity to some part of it, or to encapsulate some part of it. That might be the right answer, but usually the answer isn't, I'm new here, I understand that you all are dumb, or that this is a dumb way to do things, therefore let's change it. That's never a good way to endear
No, it
yourself
isn't, but
to a
it's a
team.
common
felt
defense
that way.
mechanism.
Yeah.
I've felt that way. I've even been right once or twice.
How do we feel that way
But-
and still have imposter syndrome?
Well,
Like, this code is crap. I'm crap. I can rewrite
Everything's
it
crap.
better. I can rewrite it better. I don't.
but yeah, well, I think part of the solution is to give people a sense that yes, there's always problems in code bases. They're big, they're complex machines built by many people, and everything's a compromise. But while you're working in the code, try to leave things better than when you found them. That doesn't mean rewrite whole swaths, but if you see something while you're working on a bug that's not related to your bug, fix it. Open a new PR, open a new ticket for it. Take some initiative to, that looks like something that I could clean up. It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Pick up the litter.
Yeah, exactly. Pick up the litter where you see, even if it's just a typo in a comment, anything like that.
Yep.
It can be done in a PR that has nothing to do with it because it's trivial. Or if you see somebody, they didn't check null on this function, throw that in there and just add some extra checking, add some extra error handling, add some logging if you're missing it. Stuff like that is really helpful. And that's pushing back at the entropy instead of starting from scratch and building another complex system, which in 5 years, you as the new person will be a senior and the new person will come in and say, this is crap.
Well, it's funny because I've been at my new company for 2 years now. I just passed 2 years at Insulet, and coming in, I'm not writing any of the code,
It's only been
but I'm
2
trying to
years?
understand.
It's only been 2 years?
It's been 2 years, like 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago or something like that. Time flies. But, as the new, I'm a director, right? So like that's pretty senior. And I've been writing code for, a long time. Now I'm not writing code here, but I'm trying to understand the code. And coming in, there's a lot of things I see as a seasoned person saying, why do we do that? I don't understand how we do that. And so instead of coming in and saying, I don't understand why you're doing this, is not the same as this is dumb. Right. So if you're curious instead of accusing, then that will help, not make people mad, and it will actually help you learn the code base faster. So whether you're a new hire or someone who's been doing this for 20 years, come in and say, hey, I see that we're doing blah, blah, blah. Like, how did we get here? Can someone explain? Normally there's going to be people who will say, oh my gosh, yeah, we don't like it like that, but here's how it used to be. Here's how we try to change it. And then we had to meet, the deadline, and they changed the scope on us at the last minute. So we did it this way. And you know what? We should create a story. We should create a ticket to go fix that next quarter. Okay. And so you haven't actually changed any code, but you've got the story behind it. You've got a little more of the history behind the team. You've been seen as somebody who's not accusing, but instead you're wanting to understand the code. And maybe then you remind the team that, oh yeah, we could actually improve this thing, in the future. And so you're not coming across as like a know-it-all or someone who's hating on the new code. Instead, you're, hey, help me get to know the code.
I feel like you two are both reading my PRs. I mean, one of them recently said, I was very clear, I pushed needs modification, not because I'm unhappy with you or the code. It's because there's something we're not seeing eye to eye on, and it may be me. So let's just talk about a couple of these issues. And then there was another one where I was like, you don't have to check null every time. If this is null, the whole file has just self-destructed.
Should have used Rust.
I mean, they're
sorry.
they're getter setters on what would be a class in C++. And so we pass it. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great learning opportunity, right? Because you come out of school, you're defensive programming, meaning, and so yeah, that's fantastic.
Check null every single time.
I'm at the entry to every function. I check all the memory spaces for null. I loop through all of RAM and create a list of things that are 0, and then I log it to flash.
And
I just assert
kidding.
if any byte is 0 in all of RAM or flash, then I just assert.
Guys are mean.
Yeah, my code has no bugs. Like there's no failures because it doesn't run. So it's actually quite perfect. Don't do that. I had something probably uniquely brilliant to say, but I just forgot.
But
I forgot with my
else.
stupid thought. Okay, please.
You're a director. You're not a manager anymore. You're managing managers. I want to be able to develop some of the people who have potential for management. And so what I wanted this podcast to be about was not necessarily what we should do, either as new hires or as mentors for new college grads, but what we should be teaching our managers and our tech leads about how they should be handling new college grads. And you talked about, have a buddy. Okay, yes, we tell our new manager, make sure that the new person has a mentor, and it can't be you because you're in their management structure. So who do you want to have a manager? Or who do you want to be their buddy? Who can balance your time and their time and blah, blah, blah. Do you have any advice for how to train a new manager to help a new college grad? This is sort of a meta question.
Yeah. This is you've gone up one level. Have them think through. So the point isn't just getting one person from point A to point B, right? The point is, how do we create a team that can onboard new people? How do we change the culture of our team to be one that accepts new people, accepts ignorance, rewards curiosity? And so ask them, like, hey, how do you think the team would do with a new hire who is ignorant? Who on the team could you trust to be a mentor? And if the answer is no one, then what are you going to do about that? Oof. As one of the stepping aside a little bit, as you talk about promoting people, you're an associate software engineer, or you're a senior, or you're a staff, or you're a principal. One of the things that you usually need to demonstrate as you go sort of up the ranks of seniority is mentoring, is coaching, is helping others develop themselves. And so are you, as a manager, or I guess make sure as a manager, that as you're thinking about, is Jill, is she ready for the promotion to senior? One of the things is, can she mentor? Like, is she ready for promotion to principal? Can she mentor mentors? Can she, has she demonstrated that? And if the answer is no, then as a manager, your job is to give them that opportunity of mentoring, managing co-ops, interns, new hires, that kind of a thing. That answers a small part of your question, Alicia. Not very much of it, though.
I mean, you're giving them the opportunity, but you could give me the opportunity to fly a jet and it would go badly. You have to give them more than the opportunity. You have to give them the tools. And so my question is, what are the tools that we can give to people to help them be better mentors, better managers, better leaders?
Yeah, so I wish I had a better set of tools. I've got a few books, so I tend to learn from books. I love reading as a hobby, and I love reading about leadership, management, people, tech, all that kind of stuff.
So Camille Fournier's Manager's Path, yes, we recommend that one all the time.
100%. Resilient Management by Laura Hogan, which is LARAHOGAN. Resilient Management is an excellent book that's about the human side of engineering management. Honestly, it pairs really well with Manager's Path by Camille, and so like those two books are my first things that I recommend. I have learned this by osmosis and by having a manager who demonstrated something. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a specific tool set other than having conversations like what we're having right now. Have these with your managers, have these with your mentors, have these like, what do you think? We talked about, building resilience as a skill. Like you need to face some pressure, and you need to face, things you don't want to do, or you need to face the ignorance of something you don't know about, and you need to learn how to learn. I think that with management, barring any really good training class or something like that, you need to present to your managers or to your staff, hey, how do you think we should onboard new people? How do we make curiosity a rewardable skill? How do we do these things? By having people think through it on their own, they're going to own it more. They're going to have to think through it. Then you can suggest a couple of books here, a couple of blogs, go out into the internet, see what the internet has to say about it. They will probably come up with things you don't think about, and they will own it more. They will internalize it more instead of like, all right, at least he gave me a checklist. I guess I'll follow the checklist. That's a little bit of a wishy-washy answer. If I had a really good training regimen, I'd probably just suggest that.
Of course. Yes. This training regimen works. Make it your own. If lacking that, ask them how they would go about it and hope that the mental exercise of considering it gives them better tools than if they just went and did it. I mean, that's true for most engineering. Don't just go off and write the code. Tell me how you're going to write the code. And it doesn't really matter if I'm listening at that point, because that process of telling me how you're going to do it is what is going to build the actual good code.
Right. And then after you've done it, sit down. So you, the manager, sit down with them and say, okay, what did you do with the mentor or with the mentee or whatever? And then how did that go?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not usually that direct. It's like, are you happy with that? Is as direct as I get on that. But yeah.
Sure. I guess I'm thinking, as a director, if I have a manager who works for me and then they have a new hire, I'll every week, in our weekly one-on-ones with manager, I'll say, hey, how is Jill doing? How's her progress? What have you given her? Who's her mentor? How's that going? And so you kind of check in, and then they will hopefully say, oh, actually, they got distracted by doing X, Y, Z, and okay, cool. So how are you handling that? And you're also trying to model to your managers, to your team, failing is just fine. Making mistakes, people are going to go off track, and whether it's writing a bug in the code or whether it's giving someone poor instruction or letting them go on their own too long without checking in and finding out they were confused for a week without talking to anybody. Okay, it's a learning opportunity. How do we not do that again?
Yep. Don't get mad. It's just not worth it.
Get even. Nope. Sorry.
Get away. No, wait, what? No.
I do still wish I had a list, a book a month club of new college grads. Here are the books. Here are the skills. I mean, I've seen the skills trees. That's okay, kind of.
Pragmatic Programmer is another book that has... I only read the older edition. I haven't actually read the 20th anniversary edition, but Pragmatic Programmer had a lot of some like how to think like a senior engineer kind of stuff. I'd be interested if listeners of the show, if they could. I'm going to give you email now, but like if people have seen anything that helps them think more along these lines, whether it's a new manager or whether it's how to manage new hires, or even the book club that new hires can go through. Is there a book that was particularly helpful? Those would be great. Another book, hang on, let me find it in my bookshelf. Where is it? It's called A Philosophy of Software Design by Jonathan... I can't read it. John Osterhout. And we'll find a link afterwards. But that book is a very philosophical book about software engineering, software architecture. It's very high level, though. It's nothing super specific. The guy is I think he's a Stanford professor, but he's also worked in industry some. And so having a new hire, new college grad or not, go through that with a team or with a few people also gives you a chance to talk about, hey, what did you think about that? What did you agree with, or what did you disagree with? And so there's some of the more technical books like that, like Pragmatic Programmer or this Philosophy of Software Design, that can give you some of the technical discussion that you might be able to learn with. Joel Spolsky, who was a super prominent blogger, and he actually was the co-founder of Stack Overflow. But he wrote a couple of books that were based on blog posts of his, and it was written in the early 2000s. A lot of it is kind of dated right now, just in terms of the thinking. But he was very good at writing about how software should be developed, and those might make good book clubs, just in terms of saying, how should you, organize your day? How should you keep distraction free? Why should you never rewrite a project or rewrite a piece of software in a completely different language? And his answers aren't always correct, but they get people thinking about how to manage people, how to manage tech, how to do that kind of thing. So those are a couple of suggestions. They may be good, they may be bad, but things that I have found helpful in the past that might be good reading material, supplemental material.
For the skill side, I guess I am supposed to plug my book, but Making Embedded Systems,
you did. I'll plug that a little more here. You did ask, I think, hey, what is a training program to get somebody from 0 to 5, from junior to senior? And your book, Making Embedded Systems, second edition, is a very good, broad, and specific enough look at, like, hey, if a new hire goes through that, they will be exposed to like 90% of what we do every day in embedded systems. And, finding resources like that, put someone through that, have them do some little projects if you can, put a cohort of people through that kind of a thing. So, you've done, was it ClassPert, Alicia? So, you've literally put together that curriculum before. Would you recommend that for companies and for people to put their people through?
Well, ClassPert isn't doing new classes yet. I have been thinking about open sourcing some of that, but I'm not ready yet. My book was definitely designed for that. Okay, I know a little bit of hardware or a little bit of software. Now, how do I become an engineer who thinks about design? But in the short term, the skills trees are helpful. Nathan Jones has Embedded for Everyone, which goes through a whole bunch of different places that he's found things. It doesn't always have to be books. I mean, I like books. I agree with you. Reading for fun, reading for professional development, great. But, the repository for my book has a bunch of games. And I find myself really suggesting those to people who aren't readers. You want to know more about assembly? Great. Shenzhen IO. You want to be a better typist? TyperShark. Don't let I don't want to read or I find these things boring hold you back, because there's probably a way to make it fun. But there's so many good books, and it changes all the time. It's hard to suggest Spolsky and the Pragmatic Programmer. We went through it in the Embedded FM Slack recently. I kind of didn't like the new edition. There were a lot of editions that, I don't know, maybe I just didn't like it. I remember liking it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I wasn't at a point in my career where I needed it.
Right. I mean, it could be that the additions in the edition were not, not something you found helpful. You're just in a different place than you were 20 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, all these are true. I want to get back to one thing, because I wrote this down earlier, and it was about the PRs thing we were talking about. So Alicia, sorry for going back to this, but you were saying that you would intentionally block a PR, and you would say, it's not because you're a bad person, but you would say it's because I want to address this question, or it's because I want to do this thing, and that's normal and that's fine. Something that I would say I see teams falling into is that they communicate only via typing in stuff to a PR.
Not a good idea. No.
And that is not a good idea. Like, it's fine. Like, it's very good to put your technical thoughts in there. But at some point, if you're like, hey, maybe I disagree with the way this is being implemented, or maybe I have more fundamental questions about this, just grab a quick meeting. Just grab a quick ad hoc, hey, can we have a Zoom call, or can we get together in the office for 15 minutes? Because if I'm just hammering at you with text saying, this looks like a bug, have you thought about this, have you thought about that, it's really easy for text communication to be understood as I'm being attacked. You think my code sucks, therefore you think I suck. And instead, all I'm actually thinking is, hey, did you think about this? I'm worried about the implementation because of blah, blah, blah. And I can communicate that in a much more friendly way and less aggressive way by talking to you, because you can hear me saying, did you think about this, with a question mark at the end, instead of an accusation that you are a bad software engineer. So if you find yourself thinking through, or making a few too many, what about this? What about that? I have a problem with this. Jump on a call, grab a person in a conference room, and just have a quick face-to-face, because that's going to be so much less likely to be misconstrued as aggressive or negative than anything in typing.
I mean, I do type chat a lot, but I will take it off the PR. I do it in whatever Slack or chat method we have, where I will be less formal and all that. But I recently did PR with a new college person, and I shared my screen because I wanted to show what I meant, and they didn't know about the files changed tab.
There you go.
And it's like, oh, right. Why do I expect you to be able to? I mean, there's a lot happening on the PR page.
The files change should be the second tab after conversation. I think they've got that wrong in the user interface.
Being able to just show that was enough for the person to go off and handle a whole bunch of things. And yeah, that would have been 9,000 back and forth types. And it was basically 30 seconds of, oh, I didn't even know that was there. Which is the thing with the new college grads we need to be aware of, is there are going to be a lot of, oh, I didn't know that was there sorts of problems, because they come in for the first time, they're learning about 401ks. They don't know what you do. They don't know how to be in a professional team like this. They don't know how to necessarily understand that their skill level is not professional yet. And they can be intimidated easily. Sometimes you just have to, okay, it doesn't really matter what's wrong. Let's just sit down and chat for a second. And that approachability has always been really hard for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're usually a bunch of introverts. We're not known for our dazzling social skills. But yeah, that's a good reminder that, yeah, you're coming in, you don't know all these things. And it's a good reminder. Like, I always think it's funny when I'm explaining something kind of complicated to someone newer, that like, oh my gosh, our industry, our field is so confusing. There's so many little tiny gotchas that are not obvious at all. Like the UI on the PRs, right? Like, oh yeah, if you don't know that there's a second tab there that has these things, which isn't exactly shouting out at you, because by the way, you've never seen a PR interface like that before. It's got 4,000 visual elements on it. How do you know which ones to click on? But yeah, this is confusing stuff. So it's kind of humbling, even as a senior person, to realize, oh my gosh, I've learned a lot over the years, and I've learned it because patient people showed me things along the way, or I've stumbled along things. And so have that patience and grace for the newcomers who are showing up.
Chris, you had a question you want to come back to.
Mm-hmm. So we've been talking about how to help new grads who are feeling ignorant or confused, or maybe confused that they're confused. Maybe they don't know that they don't know things, all that stuff. And preparing your team for that and all that stuff. How do you prepare your team for the new grads who come in and just are that good? And they're right. And they're not saying rewrite it in Rust. They're raising good points and arguing with senior people, and they're right. This has happened once or twice, in my experience, and I think it's more difficult to deal with than the people who need a lot of hand-holding.
Why?
Because senior people don't like it.
That's not...
You can argue with the senior people, they're wrong, but it is a management problem.
Yes. And I've had a few of those folks, and they are such a joy. The chaos they can create is just so fun.
Okay. I see your answer is just to step back and laugh.
Let's see how this plays out.
I mean, I think it like anything else there, it's a balance. We try to be data driven as engineers, and we lie and we tell ourselves that it's a meritocracy, and we will
We're
always
scientists, which we are not.
Scientists, that's right. We will always believe in the data. And, we're not that analytical. We're not that unbiased.
There's an entire industry that has outsourced its work to random number generators.
True. Yeah, back when determinism was a thing, right? But I think there is a coaching opportunity for the new hire to say, hey, like, let's remember, everyone has biases. You're challenging them. You're challenging people's worldviews, which is fine. Can you identify what is the pain point and what does your idea solve? If people can agree that, hey, here's a pain point, here's something that solves that pain, then that's the only way you're going to move. You're going to change minds, right? And then you get to say, let's say this person has 100 ideas that are the absolute correct thing, like objectively. Let's say everyone even agrees. These are the 100 things we need to change. You can't change 100 things overnight. Like there is an organization, a team, a code base. There is a capacity for change, which is sort of intrinsic to the organization. Facebook has the famous phrase, I don't know if they use it anymore, but move fast and break things. So if you are in an organization that you live by the phrase move fast and break things, then, you can see a new hire being successful, going in and like ripping stuff up. And as long as they're not breaking too much, the mantra is break things. So that's perfectly fine. If, for instance, you work in an FDA regulated industry where breaking things means that you literally kill people, maybe you can't do that. And maybe your organizational capacity for change is lesser over a year because it takes more inertia, more checking. There's more more horrible consequences if you get it wrong. So as a leader, as a senior engineer in the team, as a new hire, everyone has work to do to understand, what's the pain point? Does this solve the pain point? What's the right time to do a change like this, if ever? And how do we organize around that? And it's a lot of ego, and that's all psychology and sociology and very little technology there. So that's the fun part about being a leader. If you're someone who thinks, ooh, that's an interesting challenge, then maybe you should be a manager. If you're someone who's like, nope, I do not want to ever even have this conversation, and I'm physically uncomfortable listening to a podcast about it, maybe you don't want to be a manager someday. But that's the fun stuff. That's the stuff where it's like, okay. Let's figure out how we could make this happen in a good and sustainable way.
To be slightly more serious, what that person, that super genius new kid, needs is the system level view that includes the people. What they need actually is management training.
Oh, you're gonna take some.
I am gonna take your best shiny new genius kid, and I'm gonna make him into a manager. No. Isn't that awful?
It is. I don't agree with it.
So I have two thoughts. I have two thoughts here. One is that something I forgot to add later. I actually put this in the outline, but I totally forgot it. Is that what I do with every new hire, whether they're a manager, new college grad, or whatever, is that Insulet was already doing this when I got here, and I'm definitely stealing this for the rest of my life. But we make a list of who else your new hire should talk to in the company, and make sure it's a broad list of people within the engineering software, other software engineers for the embedded software, the iOS software engineer, the Android software engineer, the systems engineers, the EEs, the MEs, the product managers, the program managers, the scrum masters. And their job for their first month is to talk to these 18 people and to basically say, what do you do here? Please tell me about your job. Tell me about your background. Tell me about what are the challenges that what's the hardest part about your job? And what you're doing is two things. So Alicia, you're talking about, like, it's the people side of things kind of kicked me to remember this, is that you're meeting people, you're building relationships, you're learning who else you can talk to about things. And you're learning that, oh, my little embedded software part of the company is 5% of what actually goes on here. And you're building sort of the systems knowledge. Now, you also can build the systems knowledge by actually learning how the entire system works. But this is a good, easy on-ramp to okay, here's the 18 people you got to talk to. You're going to learn something about 18 different people and systems and things along the way. And so that is fantastic. The second thing, I actually forgot we even had this at iRobot. This guy, Justin Shriver, a fantastic engineer, fantastic engineering manager, he actually created a kind of a boot camp. I think it was called like Tech Lead Boot Camp. And Justin, I'm trying to remember the agenda he had for it, but it was basically a 2 or 3 day thing that was for people who wanted to be tech leads. And it had, a 2-hour session on what does a program manager do? Like, how do schedules work? And then like 2 hours on what does a test lead do? 2 hours on what does a dev lead do? 2 hours on what does actually getting a manufacturing build for the factory look like? Basically, it was a several day program on here is an overview of what going through the whole life cycle of a program looks like. And so people got kind of a quick look at all of the different people and decisions and schedules and, go, no-go conversations that mattered in a program that gave people the context for what it takes to actually ship software besides just writing a bit of C code, updating a unit test, and pushing it to Bitbucket, if that makes sense. So that is possible. I wish I'd thought of that earlier today because that answers some of the question here. And
because you could have looked at those slides and just done this podcast yourself.
Exactly. Well, I would have just sent those to you, and then no one would have to listen to me prattle on for an hour here.
You also had another thing in the list that we were going to talk about, and that's to have each new hire add to the stuff to know as a new hire page.
Yes.
And edit it ruthlessly.
Yes.
So that you don't end up with 1,000 little bits, but you do, the new hires build the on-ramp for the next person.
Exactly. Because they're going to trip over all the stuff that wasn't clear from the last person, and they're going to hopefully fix it. And that way it stays updated as your tools change and as your instructions on how to get into Slack change. The new hire edits it. Plus, by encouraging them and really like forcing them to edit this communal wiki page or Confluence page or whatever you have, the documentation, it also gets them kind of owning it more, right? They're not just a newcomer who's like, I don't know what's going on, but instead they're helping to train the next person. And that's ownership, that's empowerment. There's that word again. And that's engaging, like, okay, I belong here. I'm helping to make things better. And even if I haven't committed the best new feature yet, I'm helping myself and I'm helping my other new hires to kind of get through this.
Do you think new hires really need that much more praise than everybody else?
I don't think so. I honestly, I think we all, I don't want to be like, oh, everyone needs a trophy every 15 minutes. But I think that we all should think about thanking each other more just in general and saying, hey, you did a really good job in that presentation. Hey, you did this. Hey, you did that. Not in a performative way, not because I think you need praise. And if Alicia doesn't get 17 praises every week, she will be grumpy. But instead, like looking around and thinking, I want to work in a place where good things are recognized. And when I see one of my people deliver a presentation that was really clear, I should tell them, hey, that was really clear. You took something that was confusing and you made it clear. Or, hey, that was a really insightful question. And just doing little things like that and having that become sort of a habit for everybody, like there's no downside there. And again, I'm not saying this is performative, that you must do 17 of these a week, else your fragile ego will be crushed. Instead, I'm saying I'd rather work in a place where people are like, hey, Jill helped me this week. Shout out to her. On some programs that we have internally here, we actually have a shout out channel that is a channel that is dedicated to, shout out to Chris and Alicia. They went above and beyond this week and they did this thing. And it can be a little thing, it can be a big thing, but it's normalizing the public thanking of each other.
I'm sorry, I just reminds me of something from college where I was the Usenet administrator, and so I would create local mud dot whatever groups on Usenet. If you don't know what Usenet was, look it up. It was something from the time of dinosaurs. Basically, it was social media. We invented social media, and then you all forgot about it. Anyway, one of the groups we created was mud.flame, because you had to have a flame group for every top level group domain. So we had mud.flame, and people used to argue and yell at each other and call each other names on that all the time. And one of the CS professors hated this. He could not stand it. And so he made me God rest his soul, Professor Keller, he made me create an alternate group called Mud.Kudos, where people could say nice things about each other. And at the time, we all thought this was ridiculous, and it was ridiculous. Now I have more sympathy toward the notion, toward the impulse there. But Mud.Kudos was empty.
Which only made it worse.
No, but nobody ever posted on Mud.Kudos.
Yeah.
Anyway, that just reminded me of that, the Slack Kudos group, which I think is a good idea, and I think people in companies would use it more. People in the college probably would not respond to it as well.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. That's kind of tough. At iRobot, we had a kudos thing in Slack, and one of our tools team people created it. And basically, it was a Slack command where you could just like Slack, you could give someone kudos, and you would say kudos
nice.
to Chris for doing X, Y, Z. And we could argue whether this was good or not. But what that would do then is that would increment your kudos.
Oh no, ma'am.
You can't make it a competition.
You can't have meow meow beans. Meow meow beans.
But the thing about the meow meow beans, the thing about it actually worked. Like in this culture, we ran it for a number of years. Now the company went bankrupt. But I'm pretty sure those are not related. Those are not related. But it actually worked. What ended up happening is the few people at the top of the pyramid, you're like, those really are the most helpful people. And like I remember who those humans are. You know, John Dorich, for instance, like, oh my gosh, that guy was super smart, and he was always helping everybody, and he deservedly was at the top of the kudos list. Because darn it, like he was that helpful, and by elevating that behavior, I think we helped encourage the culture to be one of helping. You know, we didn't give raises based on it. No one was penalized if they didn't get enough kudos, that kind of a thing. It was. We internally, I think, handled it well. The culture was coming from a good place anyway, and I could absolutely see that being weaponized and being a horrible, horrible thing. So
the people on the top of the list did not get their own conference room and did not get to sit in there and drink out of goblets while wearing togas.
Not that I know of.
Right, well, no. Okay, that's probably fine. We'll link to the episode in question that I'm referring to of a show. That
Community.
Yes.
Good show.
Yeah. I wrote down Meow Meow Beans.
I didn't expect Usenet or Meow Meow Beans to come up on this show. But flame wars, people were bad to each other on the internet before.
People were bad to each other on the internet the instant the internet occurred.
It's true.
It's just the way we are.
It's true. But people are also wonderful to each other on the internet sometimes, like in the Embedded FM podcast Slack group.
Occasionally.
Pretty good place. I'm happy with it.
It is a pretty good place. Like, I remember when you started it publicly, I was thinking like, ooh, how is this going to go? A bunch of randos on the internet. But it is actually perhaps like uniformly just a good place for people to ask questions, express ignorance, and get questions answered and kind of have a good time. And you got some cute pictures of dogs on there sometimes too. It's kind of a win-win.
Svec, you're employed at Insulet, and you are thinking about doing a little bit of side consulting.
Yeah. Thanks for that wonderful plug for me. But yeah, I've done some leadership and management consulting for smaller companies, for medium companies, just for individuals. And as hopefully you can tell, I like by this podcast episode, I love thinking about this stuff. And again, the psychology and the sociology of teams and getting them to think better, you know, getting your particular team to figure out the context of how you can be more effective, more whatever. Is something that I've really gotten more excited about and more interested in, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. So I've worked with a couple of companies. I am working with a couple of companies doing a little bit of kind of a coaching, you know, whether you call it leadership consulting or leadership or management coaching, words that kind of describe the same thing. But if you're interested in having a thought partner, even just like a rubber duck to bounce things off of, to someone who has, you know, obviously I don't know you, I don't know your company, but someone to bounce things off of and give you some ideas and just talk about things with, you know, or reach out to me. I love having these conversations. I love helping people. You know, I've made enough mistakes that I've learned a few things, and I always have more to learn. We all do. And if you're interested in having these conversations for yourself in your career or for your company or your group, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk. You know, get in touch with me at Svec at chrissvec.com. You know, the spelling of that will be in the show notes. And Svec is just SVEC. It's a terrible name, but at least it's pretty unique.
Name.
It's fine.
It's a fine name, but I have to spell it every time I ever say it, so it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
rough one.
Complain to me about how your name is spelled.
What's that, Alicia or Elise?
Alekia is one of my favorite
Alekia. I want to start calling you that. I think every guest who comes on the show needs to call you
Feel
Alekia.
free to call me L.
It's the ancient Greek pronunciation.
Alekia.
Or the Sindarin.
Svec, do you have any thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Just to recap, the thing I've said a few times here is admitting ignorance publicly is literally a superpower. And if you can do that, especially if you're a senior, especially if you're someone in a position of influence, authority, power, whatever in your company, being seen as someone who can say, I don't get that. I don't understand that. Can you please explain it to me? That will help encourage everyone to see that, we all got to be learning. We all got to be admitting it. Totally fine to not know something. And because if you don't admit you don't know something, you'll never learn it. So that's my spiel there.
Our guest has been Chris Svec, Director of Embedded Software at Insulet. He does some management leader coaching consulting. If you want to talk to him, it's Svec at chrissvec.com. And we will not have a link in the show notes, but if you contact us, I can pass it along.
Thank you, Chris, for joining us again, and it was lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks. Always fun. Always fun. Thank you both.
Also, thank you for filling it the last minute.
Oh, I didn't realize I was a felon. Well, in that case, I take it all back.
All right, then.
A felon?
A felon? A fill-in?
He's finally admitting it.
It's court ordered.
Thank you to Christopher for producing and co-hosting. Thank you to our Patreon Slack group for, being kind of cool. Thank you for listening. And you can always contact us at show@embedded.fm or hit the contact link on Embedded FM. And now a quote to leave you with. This one's kind of long. I could have become a mass murderer after I hacked my governor module, but then I realized I could access the combined feed of entertainment channels carried on the company satellites. It had been well over 35,000 hours or so since then, while still not much murdering, but probably, a little under 35,000 hours of movies, serials, books, plays, and music consumed. As a heartless killing machine, I was a terrible failure. That is from Martha Wells' All System Red. She was on the show, and of course, we didn't talk much about technology, just about fun.